I remember skiing one day and thinking, gosh, life is so great. And some friend of mine said, I could do this every single day. And it hit me like a punch in the mouth. It was kind of like, I can't. You have more in you. What are you doing? Why don't you do more? What should you do? Why don't you help others find their way? And that's what helped me come up with One Life Fully Lived and GoBundance.
Welcome back to the 0 to 100 podcast show, where our mission is to help you, our listener, our members achieve time freedom through cash flow real estate. I am here with my co-host Travis Dillard and Mitchell England, and we have an awesome guest today, Mr. Tim Rhode. Tim would tell you that he got off to a slow start. Now, I wouldn't call his start slow, but Tim would tell you he got off to a slow start after growing up in rural town in Portola in Northern California and barely graduating high school. Tim Rhode found himself at the age of 25 working as a grocery clerk with 2 young children to provide for. He eventually found his niche, or niche, however you want to say it, selling real estate. And from 1986 to 2000, he sold over 2,500 homes. And from 1997 to 2006, he invested in over 100 properties, which is very fitting being on the 0 to 100 show. Tim focused on saving money, keeping his expenses low, and playing solid financial defense, which allowed him to basically retire. And he was financially free at the age of 40, which if I remember correctly, Tim spent about 300 days out of the year skiing soon after he retired. Not wanting to play, hike, bike, or ski all day, eventually, Tim threw his energy into his true passion, helping people thrive and live their most fulfilling life. He founded the nonprofit One Life Fully Lived and helped people of all ages gain the tools and skills they need to thrive. And he also co-founded GoBundance, a high-level mastermind with David Osborne, Pat Hyben, and Mike McCarthy to help healthy, wealthy, generous people live epic lives, a group that we are all a part of. Tim has also authored and co-authored numerous books, such as Tribe of Millionaires and The Quitter's Manifesto, and has been featured on a variety of podcasts, and now lives life near his children in the Reno, Nevada area. Tim Rhode, that was quite the bio. Welcome to the 0 to 100 podcast show.
Woo. Welcome, man.
Appreciate you.
I love it,
guys.
I love it how whenever we get a bio, it makes us feel like inferior, which is a good thing, right? Get around people that have done big things. Like almost the common thread is like, and they barely made it out of high school.
Well, I love that it was like it was a long bio, and I know it only scratches the surface of Tim's story. So, Tim, let's get into, kind of leading up to going kind of from your childhood to that 25-year-old self working as a grocery clerk.
Sure. Yeah. And when I say I got off to a late start, it's because, I wouldn't have given me a 25 cents for me as a 15 to 21-year-old. You know what I mean? And many of you can relate to this. I just seemed like I was just always scrambling and never getting anywhere. So then I had 2 small kids, and at 25, I was a part-time grocery clerk painting addresses on people's curbs to buy diapers for my then.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I found my niche selling real estate. And I remember my first weekend in real estate, I held an open house, sold it. They needed to list a home. I took some buyers out. And at Sunday night, 2 a.m., I'm sitting in the bathtub trying to calm down. My heart's just, it's like, let's
go.
Yeah.
Was it excited? Were you excited?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're just like, oh my God.
I did the math. I had the calculator up, not in the bathtub, I don't think. But anyway, I realized I had just made more that weekend than I did in 6 months in the grocery business.
You would have to paint like 5,000 curbs to make that commission.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, it's kind of like when you keep putting your key in a lock and it never fits. And finally, the key went in the lock, and I just went, wow, I know this. Just my next incarnation. So
what was it about that though? Like before, like you're 25, you have young kids. Was this just like an oh shit moment of like, I need to do something else. Painting addresses on curbs and working part-time in a grocery store just isn't going to cut it. Like, where did that fire come from to then go into real estate and have so much success that you had?
I think it was being a UFCW grocery clerk and seeing the guys in their 30s and 40s just hating what they did. And I just, it was kind of like
dead end.
Yeah. And I could just see that was a ceiling. And I knew I could sell. Like, I started selling door to door, mowing lawn, all the things that we all do. And we're all the same person if you think about it. Everybody that's listening to this can relate to it because we're willing to do extra. And that's the difference, and that's what I saw is I finally found the right vehicle for my talents.
I love sales too. And I always say this, I tell people, especially young people starting out, obviously outsize your income, right? If you can outsize your income initially early on, then that's going to give you money left over to invest, to build passive income, which is, we're all shooting for that, right? And I always say, get into sales, man. Like, if you're not a brain surgeon, or somebody that can bring a lot of W-2 income, get into sales, because real estate and sales seems to be one of the great equalizers of this nation. You can get someone without a college degree, without a high school education, but that has high emotional IQ, or you can learn the skill of selling, and you can make a shitload of money.
Travis, that is so spot on. So spot on. And every, all the young people just starting out and figuring out, what can I do to earn more? Even if you're doing a W-2 and you want to make extra money, Travis has something there. And maybe if you can find a way to, I had right over my desk when I sold real estate, it said, step right up and risk rejection. And that was that's what I was able to do, because I didn't mind the word no. I mean, nobody likes it, but I lived for the yes. So when I sold real estate, I just want, this is a really important point. I played this game with myself. If I had 3 listing appointments, I didn't have to prospect. But if I only had 1, I had to prospect 2 hours. If I had 2, I only had to prospect 1 hour. But it was every single day I got on the phones from 9 o'clock to 11:30. And it was just dialing for dollars or knocking on FSBOs or expired listings. And I love that saying, step right up and risk rejection.
Another common theme. Yeah. We talked to so many people like, yeah, man, I blocked out 2 hours to produce, and just, I got on the phone and got my teeth kicked in. It's funny that you said you gamified it, because Mitch gamified it too. When you were starting out, he would actually count the number of no's and would get excited, because if he got to a certain number of no's, that means eventually he's going to get a yes.
Yeah, I had these KPIs. If you can't figure out how many you're going to sell, but I knew how many days I was going to work, how many hours I was going to work, how many leads I was going to call. And if I did those 3 things, it'd lead to this many listing appointments, which would lead to this many listings. That would lead to this many sales. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had on my whiteboard, literally, I'd count all the no's, and then I'd put up a commission, and I'd divide the no's into the commission. And I was like, oh my God, each no is like $120. So then I'm like, if I want to make $1,000 a day, I need to get 10 no's. Like, I kind of reversed anyway. It was kind of neat though. Like, you almost I love the gamification. And I also love the, Travis mentioned in the beginning, you didn't do so good in school and you're kind of bumping along, but for people like us, I think sales is a really amazing outlet to, like Travis said, to get going, but also just for channeling all of that random energy into one purpose.
And nothing pisses a brain surgeon off more when you say I make more than you and I barely made it out of high school.
There's a guy in GoBundance. He's a doctor in LA. He went to USC. And I remember him calling me and saying, Tim, I want advice on how I can, do what you've done. And I thought of my dad who went to USC and always got on me because I never went to college. And he was like, anyway. But I totally concur is if you're a great salesperson, you can make more than a doctor, an attorney, and you can do your time. you can put in there. I coached Little League. I took every weekend off. I centered my life around my family and chose when I was going to work. And then it was all about dollar productive activity.
Sales also, though, people need to understand. Some people are like, well, I don't want a sales job. I'm sorry, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be an investor, like you have to become a salesperson. Like you, and I always say this for the fear of sounding like a broken record. But like, if you're going to try and raise capital, you need to sell. If you're going to try and get employees to come work for you as an entrepreneur and communicate your vision and get people excited about it, you have to sell that, right? Or you have to sell to pick up customers. So, man, if you don't know what to do, where to start, go learn how to be a salesperson. And I do believe it's a skill you can learn. Absolutely. I think people say, oh, I'm not naturally a salesperson. But I think it's something you can absolutely learn for sure.
And I want to take the other side of this. I don't know if all four of us are extroverts. I certainly am. I know Travis is. Gabe, yeah. But anyway, even if you're an introvert,
Mitch, he's not an extrovert. He hides under his bed.
This is the only time I come out for this podcast. And then
I don't know you that well. But I think of the introverts that I knew in the real estate business. They were excellent salespersons, and they were the ones I wanted to sell my listings because I knew they were going to hold up their end. Because it's not only do you have to be a great salesperson and get the order signed, you got to come through. You got to take care of details. And I like the introverts more than I like the extroverts. When I went into escrow with them, I knew they were going to get things, hold up their end in getting things done.
So Tim, how did you find real estate? Like, how did real estate get on your radar when you were spray painting addresses and working in the grocery store? Like, why real estate?
First of all, I've always been fascinated by it. I grew up in Portola, which is north of Truckee, Lake Tahoe area. My parents split up. Mom lived in Oakland, and I'd hitchhike, take buses, do everything to go back and forth between the two. And I don't know why, but at 15 years old, I was looking at the path of growth. And I was looking at how things are, houses being built and I was always fascinated by it. By the way, I'm the least mechanically inclined male you will ever meet.
No, I am. Actually, I am.
You got to get to know Travis. You guys can compete for it.
Okay, let's do this. I put oil in my car when I was 16, but didn't put some pan in or something, and all the oil leaked out. And that was me.
I love that.
Dude, I'm useless. Anyway, but my mom sold real estate, and I used to put out flyers for her. I went to a Wayne Dyer seminar in 1974.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
I listened to everything by that guy. I love him.
Zig Ziglar, Tommy Hopkins, Jim Rohn. I was listening to the masters, but while I was still a grocery clerk. And I actually bought my first rental while I was still a grocery clerk. And I'll be, this is be honest. I had another line. I was let's say an herb salesman.
Let's say an herb salesman.
Yeah, I don't
like a Washington State herb salesman, like that. Yeah.
Let's just leave it to the listener's imagination. But that helped me buy my first house before I started selling real estate.
Okay, so lesson learned for all of you parents out there: let your kids hitchhike to Oakland at 15, and let them be herb salespeople. No, I'm joking. No, but I love that. I love that you said that, and also unpacking something. I didn't want to just gloss over this. People that are listening, notice this guy's painting curbs. He's a grocery clerk, and he's tuning his mindset constantly. And we always talk about that in the tribe. Like, you've got nothing. Mindset is the first step in my mind to everything. You absolutely have to get you need to think big. You need to think, why not me? You need to think contrarian. You need to think differently than what you're taught in school and college. And I love the fact that you're like a grocery clerk trying to figure out how to pay for diapers, but you're listening to people doing big things. And I think that I would argue that and your sales skills were like integral to your success.
Totally concur. Yeah. And it was kind of like, I would never buy a lottery ticket because I didn't want to win the lottery. I wanted to be self-made. I knew I was going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And babies here.
That's
We talk about it a lot.
The same thing. I was like, I remember people ask, "Would you want to win the lottery?" I'm like, I don't. I want to build wealth my own. I don't want it just handed to me.
Yeah. So I'm selling real estate. I loved it from 26 to 35, and we noted I wrote a book called The Quitter's Manifesto. Quit the job you hate for the work you love. And all of a sudden, real estate it started to rust. It started to just not feel right anymore. And I just felt like I was starting to outgrow it. And I woke up. I'm in Belize scuba diving, and I'm 40 years old, and I'm thinking for the first time. And by the way, let me back up. At 30, in my head was saying, "You suck. You haven't done shit. Show me something, bitch. Come on, you suck. You suck. You suck." And it was terrible mindset, and I'd love to touch on that in a bit. But
Mitch says that to me all the time. It's not the voice in my head. Mitch,
well, that's true. That's true, though, buddy. That's true. This was different.
Yeah. But at 40, I woke up in Belize, and I'm scuba diving, and I'm a millionaire. And for the first time, I stopped and reflected and said, "Dude, I am so proud of you. What's next?" And immediately it said, "I never want to list another fucking home." And it was like, whoa, what are you going to do? Well, you flipped that home. You made $35,000. This lady walked into my office and said, "I want you to buy my house. Will you do that?" And I'd said, "Well, you can't flip homes in Manteca, California. There's no spread." And then I made that leap. And then on the plane back home, I wrote out, "Tim is now an investor." And I wrote out, it was a Tony Robbins outcome, purpose, action. What are you going to do? Where are you going to find your deals? Who's going to help you? And I changed my identity. And I think that's a huge piece of all of this. Lovable loser, grocery clerk, real estate agent, investor. And now I'm goods and words. But it's to me, it's all in how you identify yourself and having the balls to go from a top real estate sales person to just go, I'm done with that. What's next?
Will you walk us through those 10 years from 30 to 40? Because you went from like, I'm a loser, I'm not doing enough, like I need to do more. But then you produced, right? Like you became a top agent, top broker. Like you produced in those 10 years. But then at 40, it just clicked. You're like, I'm done. I'm no longer going to list another property. I'm an investor. But what happened from 30 to 40?
Well, first of all, I want to go back to who I was at 30. And I'm very proud of the fact I never missed a parent-teacher conference. I coached my kids in Little League and Boys and Girls Club, and my daughter did this baton twirling things and would take her to different events all over Northern California. So I'm really proud of the fact that I was there for my kids who are now 41, 39, and 30. So that part of it, I think, is a huge piece. But in my head, I thought, well, if you're going to be self-employed, you need this boss. And that boss, I called him the dickhead boss. And every morning, the scared kid said, "Oh, I want to get on the phones. They reject me." And the dickhead bosses say, "You suck. Show me something. How many listings you got? Then shut up. Get on the phones." Okay. So I wish I had that over again. Now the voice in my head says, "Dude, I love you. I know you're hard. I know you're a good man. I know, you know what I mean? I just, and if somebody ever tries to play with my vibe, it's like, get out of here. You just don't even think about it. And especially myself, it's like, it's just, I don't pay attention to that voice.
Do you think maybe that's the curse of an entrepreneur though? It's like, cause I listen to you and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have that voice. I have that thing, and I'm wondering if do a lot of us have that? And then the second question is like, how do you get past that? Because also like, selfishly, I want to be an entrepreneur, but be in peace, right? We all want that. We want to play the game, but be in peace internally. How do you get rid of that voice? What do you think clicked for you?
I think it was spending more time in nature and and having more time to really get to know myself. At 30, I was so busy being in the trenches and doing all of these things. I really didn't give myself time to really get to know myself and really get to know my value, I guess, is what I'm thinking about, Mitch, So a lot of times, and I call it being on the hamster wheel of having to produce, being a good father or mother or, entrepreneur, all the different roles that you have to play. But my answer to that is spend time either in nature or at the gym or in meditation or prayer or whatever it is for you that helps you go within. And what I was missing at that time is there's this head-heart combination that I don't think I've always had a big heart, but I don't think I tapped into the heart. I think I was so just, raw.
Well, there's a lot to be said for quieting your mind. And I think we're all guilty of that as entrepreneurs. We're conditioned to be doers and stay busy. And it's until you quiet your mind. In fact, I was just like the day before yesterday, the day was over and I kind of had a shitty day and I was talking to my wife and I'm like, I can't seem to get my head right. I feel tired. And she's like, I'm overwhelmed or I'm underwhelmed. I don't know what I am. She's like, go for a walk. Like, just go for a walk. She goes, I've been doing that lately. And so yesterday I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this walk thing. And so I just shut it down and I went for a walk. It was like 30-minute walk just on the river. And she's right, man. It's amazing. And there was no outcome. There was no agenda. It was just walk and quiet my mind or meditate or those types of things. And it's amazing the insight you get when you do that.
And even get like, maybe a small waterfall or something, some peaceful spot along that walk and just get super quiet. And maybe it's in prayer. Maybe it's in whatever works for you, but there's just this source connection that I've found. And I also love nature, the way it all fits together. And it just kind of lets you know how things should be and how I want to be within my world. And as the patriarch of my family, I want to show up every single day and everything I have to do in flow. And I want to exist in flow as much as I can. And it's hard to do when you're beating on yourself. And by the way, I'm kind of, part of me says this is bad advice because I think you have to have that kind of exit. It's like not exactly where I want to be. And I'm poking myself in the ribs while I say that. And I think there's I'm kind of going against what I'm saying because I think this piece that if you want to go from 0 to 100, you got to have a little bit of angst too.
Yeah, we call that your why. Like,
there's a bit of push and pull. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have that chip on your shoulder. You've got to, like, especially starting off, we all had that. Like, hell yeah, I'm going to get there and I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to be scrappy. So, note to all of you listening, you've got to punch yourself in the ribs and call yourself a dumbass and that you're stupid.
Yeah.
You got to do
and then go
30. And then you can quiet down and love yourself in your 40s. But I'm joking.
And go hang out underneath a waterfall. Yeah.
No, I love it. I do agree with you.
No,
there's a balance for sure. Yeah.
That was such good advice though. Cause like it's funny cause I'm like, if your head's in emails and phone calls and you're like, you're whiteboarding and you're looking at your net worth and you're growing this and all these things, but you're not in touch with the natural world. I think that's amazing advice because that's where we should be. Like we've been taken out of that. And yeah, what's the point? Good point. So anyway, I love that answer, Tim. That's awesome.
Tim, at 40 years old, you're scuba diving in Belize and you decide you're not going to list another property ever again. And then you're on the airplane and you write down that you are now an investor. You changed your identity underwater or maybe in the airplane. And then you came back and what happened?
So I took my team and I said, we're going from a real estate selling team to a real estate buying team. We're going to be our own best customer. And at this time, I had 2,500 leads in my system, and I changed my script. It was, I want to buy your home. and I went into, I had these sources and systems for listing and selling home. By the way, I was a listing agent. That's all I did. I worked at this time 4 days a week, probably 6 hours a day, just concentrating on listing and prospecting and listing and keeping my expenses low. That was my mindset. Then it was, I want to buy a home every month. That's my goal. Is just to put a home where I net 40 on each home. That's what I'm going towards.
So you're a flipper.
Yep. Yeah. And I did that from, right around 2000 to 2005.
You timed that well.
Oh yeah. And then I sold 17 properties with 52 tenants right into the top of the market and tapped out. And if you watch the movie The Big Short, I lived that. And I tapped out right during that period, moved up to Toho, and just started playing every single day.
Wait. So
Jeez.
Maybe I know where Mitch is going with this. Did you see the writing on the wall before 2008? Did you?
Yeah, I did. Well, and by the way, and think of Stockton, Modesto, and they talked about that area in The Big Short, but I sold right into that craze. And you know how I knew how to do it is I started tracking trends in 1990. I called it the Tim versus Board report. And as I talk about arrogant, it was how Rhode and Associates Real Estate against Remax, Coldwell Banker. There was no Century 21. It was how many is our company selling every month against our competition? How many new homes are coming on the market? How many sold? How many went expired? How many went pending? And we graphed everything. So I saw from 83 to 90, it went like this. From 90 to 97, it went like this. And this is my area. From 97 to 2005, it went like this. And I just saw how many homes are on the market, how many are selling. Like you could just see it. And in the stock market, they call it a blow off top. Like we were just right at the very top. So Daniel Del Real, I helped him with his plan. When he was tapping out, we were looking at, he used my sheet to look at all my properties. Those 17, I had A, B, and C. And I knew I was moving up to the mountains and I just basically sold everything right into the craze.
Jeez.
Wow. Yeah. So the message in that is whether you're selling real estate or buying or whatever you're doing. If you notice, I had key performance indicators. I was tracking trends. I was looking at all this data that was helping me, as Gretzky would say, skate to where the puck's going.
I love that. Are you still tracking trends today?
I don't do shit now, dude. All I do is get the goods in the woods.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and Mitch, all I do now is I water ski in others' weights and I let them do all the work.
I love that. Well, I didn't know if it was like a hobby, but yeah, I get that. You're in a totally different phase now. Yeah.
It's all about, I woke up this morning, I worked out, I played disc golf. After this, I'm going to go for a nice hike It's all about being in nature and getting the goods. And yesterday I got back from this event down in Scottsdale, got to babysit my 3-year-old granddaughter. And, now I'm just, reaping my rewards for all the hard work, helping my family and helping the next generation have figured all of this out. The way I look at it, there's 3 different levels of this. I was a player on the field. Then I was a coach. Now I'm an owner. I don't coach. I don't play. I only help the other coaches and the other players on the field play their game. So I have no desire to and maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not a good thing, but I seem to be enjoying myself.
So you sell everything. You look like and are a genius. Because my gosh, like I was building spec houses when 08 hit. So I'm a dumbass. So I wish I had you as my owner, coach. But so you sell, you move, you're sort of, is that it? Are you retiring? What happens next? Because I also know that you still are investing, you're still involved in being an entrepreneur. But you mentioned something, we're at the GoBundance retreat, and when Gabe was interviewing, you had mentioned something. You go, you have a very hard rule. I don't work. Like there's opportunities that come your way and you're like, wait, will I have to do anything on this? Absolutely. I'm not going to do that. But so tell us what happens after you move, and how does that philosophy play into what you do going forward?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I believe it. Life is all about multiple incarnations. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, and I also believe in data points and just seeing what's coming your way that makes the most sense. And right as I was selling into that craze, there was a company called foreclosures.com down in Sacramento, and I went and worked for them. And I started coaching real estate investors just to keep my mind fresh and to throw some extra income. And I coached, probably 200 to 300 different real estate investors from, I won't get the timing right, but sometime around 2008 to 2012, including some that like Andrew Cushman. I coached him back in the, I actually, another funny story, David Green used to work for me when I was listing and selling real estate and just starting my flipper career. He used to prospect for me way back in the day. So that was my next incarnation, was coaching real estate investors. And right around that time, I remember skiing one day and thinking, gosh, life is so great. And some friend of mine said, I could do this every single day. And it hit me like a punch in the mouth. It was kind of like, I can't. You have more in you. What are you doing? Why don't you do more? Well, what should you do? Why don't you help others find their way? And that's what helped me come up with One Life Fully Lived and GoBundance and be a part of GoBundance.
So Tim, how long of a time period? Because if I remember correctly, you sold everything at 40, or you stopped, I guess, listing properties at 40, right? And then you're skiing 300 days out of the year. Did you?
No, that's 100 days.
300 would be a lot.
Yeah.
100 is a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so 100 days out of the year. Did you do that for a year? And then you're like, I need to do something more? Or was that a couple years?
When I moved up to the mountains, I did that pretty much, I'd say from 2008 to 2012, let's say. And I actually started One Life around 2010, 2011.
You're skiing, you're getting the goods in the woods, you're enjoying your life, but then you're like, gosh, I need to give back in some way. I need to do more for not just yourself. You had done a lot for yourself. You were financially free, but you wanted to give back. You wanted to give back to others. What did that transition look like?
Yeah. And by the way, One Life Fully Lived is a nonprofit, and I never took a dime and probably put somewhere between 200 and 500,000 into it. So it was a labor of love. And it was all about helping people just learn the fundamentals so they too can dream, plan, and live their best life.
Are these young people that you're in One Life Fully Lived? So I love that you said that. So what exactly, like, what's the general fundamentals that you're teaching these young people? Is it like, because I know we always talk about to sound, for the fear of sounding like conspiracy theorists, we're all taught to be robots and be corporate drones, right? And when you sort of talk to young people and they read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Or they sort of have this mindset shift. It's almost like they take the red pill in the Matrix. They're like, oh my God, like, whoa, like this has been in front of me all this time and I haven't seen it. Are you teaching people about being an entrepreneur, about investing, like, et cetera, et cetera? Are you teaching them to be contrarians, think differently?
Well, first of all, my dad went to USC. He was a teacher. His idea of success was getting the master's. And if you just get that master's, everything will work out. And I simply was not that kid. I couldn't pay attention. I couldn't sit still. So I barely graduated high school, never went to college. And I kind of had to learn all of this on my own. There wasn't a lot of places that are out there now. So I was talking to my good friend, Christopher Lockhead, and who kind of went through the same thing I did. So we were like, what if we came up for something for the rest of us? The ones that aren't going to college, what would we teach them? And by the way, we talked about the books I wrote. I helped the One Life Roadmap, the number one Life Roadmap that's on Amazon. And we wrote it for students and for adults. And there were two concepts. First of all, our fundamentals are vision, finances, relationships, and wellness. Okay. These are the fundamentals of things they should be teaching in school. Don't get me started.
Don't get me started either. We don't get what they're teaching in school. You're like, my son just spent two months learning all about corn, which is great. I mean, I don't hate corn, but 2 months to learn about corn.
Yeah. So why aren't they teaching you, who the heck am I? This is our second concept, this simple triangle. We called it the fulfillment triangle. Why aren't they teaching kids, what am I good at? What am I passionate about? And how can I make money doing that?
Yeah, no kidding.
We called it the
corn.
Yeah.
And corn. You teach about corn too.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
But so and for all of you that have kids, it's our job is to help them figure this out themselves of who in the heck am I? And how can they wake up every single day and say, and they pay me to do this? Are you kidding me? So that's your mission for, if you're a young person listening to this, or just start to tap into who the heck am I? And how can I live the rest of my life doing what, fully what I'm supposed to be doing. So
you mentioned something earlier. And I wanted to go back really quick. There's probably a lot of merit, and it sounds like you've done this. Like, you've put yourself in positions to quiet your mind, right? And when you quiet your mind, these incarnations happen. And I was reading some of the notes about things that you wanted to talk about, like things come your way. And I feel like if you quiet your mind and you get in nature or whatever quieting your mind does, you're going to be receptive to what is the next thing, what is coming your way, right? And it sounds like whenever you've had those big ahas, you weren't grinding it out, you weren't buried in email, you weren't, checking things off your task list, you were just being, and you're receptive to things coming your way. You receive that. With sounding a little woo-woo here, but I subscribe to that big time.
Yeah, it's funny, Travis, as you say that, every time I've ever had a major, I thought of them as punches in the mouth, but major breakthroughs. Maybe it was whatever source is trying to throw you these ideas. Hey, this is what's next for you.
I can't hear you because I'm checking off things on my task list. Right?
But you got to listen, though. You got to be listening. You got to listen.
Yeah. So here's to me the best way to do that is get your heart rate elevated in nature. That's where my best ideas come. Climbing up a hills somewhere, jumping into a cold lake. And to do that with other seekers, there's nothing better is to just ask. And I'm thinking of that with Lockhead when we were out in nature talking about what one life fully lived would be. We're just bouncing ideas off each other. And I've had that so many times. And since when I talk about being a coach or being the owner, I can't tell you how many people I've gotten out in nature in my neck of the woods and just kind of basically help them find their answers and had them come back to me and go, Tim, do you remember that hike we took? You changed my life when you said, or you asked me, you know what I mean? And so here's the formula. It's pretty freaking simple formula. Get out in nature, get your heart rate elevated and find a quiet spot that looks peaceful and just, it's almost like it's calling you to just sit and get quiet.
Tim, why do you think people are so resistant towards that? I mean, I often say that I think being productive and being busy are very different things. And oftentimes people spend so much time being busy where I've always argued that time to think, like time with yourself just to think, is possibly the most productive time. And you've kind of said that over and over, like get out in nature, like, don't overconsume all this noise, just get in quiet. Like I feel like a lot of people, especially in the real estate investing world, are very resistant towards that. Like it almost goes against what they think they need to do to be successful. Why do you think people have such a hard time accepting that as productive time or beneficial time?
I think it's way deeper than that, because if you think about it, how many people are listening to this podcast telling themselves that they're going to have their kids get a degree? And I think that's the same thing. I think the true answers are being the Uncola rather than everybody's down, Coca-Cola, 7-Up, Uncola. It's not doing what the old tried and true. And my dad was the poor dad. And by the way, I want to say that. I've just found others who close to me who followed that tried and true. I'm now paying for their mortgage.
I think you're right. A lot of us we're taught to be doers. We're taught to get the assignment done. We're taught to do the 3 hours of homework. We're taught to check things off the list. And so if you feel like you're not checking things off the list or doing, then you feel like, and I'm guilty of this, man. Like I used to have a hard time just sitting down to read a book, a fiction book, or watch a movie, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what could I be accomplishing right now? And I do agree. We're taught that. We're taught that in school. We're taught that by our parents. And it is unfortunate. So you got to be a contrarian, which is the Uncola, right? Contrarian thinking.
Well, and it's almost like we're afraid we're going to get behind if we don't work. And it's just that old, that work ethic that you have to grind. And it's funny because I am a grinder. And by the way, I think I love the word gym rat. And whatever I've done, I've never been the most handsome or the strongest, but I've always been the grinder who would do the extra. And everybody that's listening to this can totally relate to that. And that's who we are. I guess what I'm suggesting is just take your foot off the gas. And Travis, you said this early on, and enjoy life. And my license plate, and I'm looking at the front one, it's GTGITW. And I just took down I now trademark get the goods in the woods. And that's, I kind of become that personified. That is my new incarnation. And as the owner, I think that's my message is is that's where the truth is. And that's where the joy is.
And you're always getting the goods in the woods. I mean, I went on a casual little hike last week when I was in Arizona, and lo and behold, who was there in front of me? A few steps ahead was there. There was Tim and Pat Hyben and Matt King, and so of course, we get up early to go hike Camelback in Scottsdale, and there you were, already on the mountain.
Well, it's so. I was going to say it's full circle. I joined GoBundance because I was listening to a Bigger Pockets podcast, and I heard you mentioning GoBundance or get your goods in the woods, and that I always remembered that because it resonated with me. And now you're on our podcast, so look how the world works.
Yeah, this is beautiful. By the way, you know what my goals are now? I'm going to ski 12 months. I'm going to get 100 days in. I went to Argentina. I'm probably going to go to Japan. I'm going to go to Chile. A lot of my quote goals now are about enhancing that and taking that to the next level.
Well, Mitch and I talk about getting goods in the woods all the time, or we want to go out in nature and talk, but then he breaks his collarbone last time we did that. So we should remember that. Did you break your collarbone, Mitch?
No, I flew with the handlebars on a mountain bike, and I'm laying there bloody on the trail, and Travis goes, "Hey, is now a good time for feedback?" And I'm like, "Actually, no. You can fuck off." How's that sound? So yeah, we got the goods in the woods. I went to the hospital anyway. So
yeah, I did that same thing, but mine was all right. Check my head; it's fine. My next time on my elbow was like not a good play. Yeah, 4 miles.
Yeah, I remember that. So terrible. Tim, we're all in GoBundance, but you're one of the founders of GoBundance. I'd love to hear what GoBundance means to you, and then I'd also like to say I always describe you as like the heart of GoBundance. Like I think of like I hear the origin stories of Pat and Dave Osborne kind of being their accountability partners, and they're really, it's all like who's grinding more, who's working more, who's accomplishing more, and then they meet you, and you're skiing 100 days a year. And I think, you brought obviously the bucket list adventures and the contribution and the relationship piece. So I often describe you as the heart of GoBundance, but I would like you to kind of speak to like how GoBundance started, why it started, and of course where it is today, because GoBundance has made a huge impact on my life and a lot of the people in my life. A lot of the people I spend time with are directly or indirectly connected to GoBundance in some way.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to give my partners a lot of props and just say I study music and art and different places where you're part of a band, and sometimes there's one hit wonders, and the ones that I respect. Look at the Stones. They were rocking in the early 60s, and they're 80 years old. And they're still, two of them have died, but I bet if they didn't, the four of them would still be out touring together. And I love David. I love Pat. We're great partners, but we really like each other and we really edify each other, but we're way different.
You guys are all three very, very different. We've had Pat and David on this show, so.
Yeah. And when we met early on, it was fascinating because if you want to be successful, you'd think we'd all be flying in formation and all want the same thing. No. David thought it was about financial freedom and about he wanted to be a billionaire someday when we first got together. And Pat was all about accountability. And if you say you're going to do it, you better do it. He'd call you a false prophet of the highest order if you said you're going to do something and you don't do it. I just love it. And as you said, I was very heart and soul and really into getting the goods. And I was all about, hey, it's all about my charity and stuff. And so instead of flying in formation, it was kind of like we each were pushing for what we thought were most important. Funny story, we were together, I think it was 1985. We're in Steamboat. It's 11 a.m. and we're doing our what became the one sheet. We're going over our goals, and I'm looking outside, and I'm in Steamboat, and there's a foot of fresh powder, and it's 11 a.m. and we weren't the first ones at the chair. Are you shitting me? Guys, this is never happening again. Tomorrow we can do this goal setting stuff, which I was really into too. I'd been doing the same thing, but I wasn't doing it during the day. During the day, you get after it. Late at night, you go over goals. Early in the morning, you go over what's most important at night. But tomorrow morning, we're first on the chair. So that's a good example of each of us thinking what was most important. So I think it's beautiful that we didn't plan for this to go the way it did, but I think it went the way it did because we were all so passionate about our piece of it. And we were also on point on what we thought was most important and stood up for those while respecting the other one. And I give David especially, I remember there were times when my finances didn't keep up with them just because I didn't give a shit, to be honest. It just was kind of like, I just had faith everything was going to work out, and I didn't push it, and I never have since I tapped out in around 2007. I really never pushed making money ever again and never will.
But you do make money, but it happens.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I don't care about it, but you're enjoying life. You're receptive to opportunities.
Yeah.
You're tuned into the universe or God or whatever it is. And it does happen. And it's with a lot less friction.
Yeah.
I'm just paraphrasing kind of.
No, you're absolutely right, Travis. For me, and everybody's different. And by the way, whoever is listening to this, if you can't tell, David knew exactly who he was. Pat knew exactly who he was. Tim knows exactly who he is. And that's that statement, do you, and make sure that you're not, following somebody else's life instead of your own. And maybe you need to listen, turn this off, or maybe you're out, get out in nature and think about this and get quiet and think about, am I living my best life? Well, if not, what might that look like? And the most important, have the courage to say, you know what, I'm not. And I'm going towards that instead of this.
That's the ultimate form of integrity, right? You keep saying like, know who you are and not subject yourself to someone else's plan for you, and know who you are. So I had a question for you, just a little bit more tactical, Tim. You tapped out in 2007, and I know you invest a lot. So what sort of advice would you give to people that are investing with other operators? You mentioned swimming, or you're in the wake, you're water skiing in the wake of others. I know you've got some really great GPs you invest with in the real estate multifamily space. So I guess my ask for you is, because we do have some people that listen to this, or they think they want to scale to 100 units. They want financial freedom, and they're like, well, I make a lot of money and I actually really enjoy being a surgeon or whatever it is. So I'm going to invest with other people, and that's how I'm going to build up my passive income. So I can retire. When I retire, I have multiple streams of income. How do you vet GPs? How do you vet operators? Because I've invested with some great operators, and I've invested with some just horrific people. So maybe talk to that a little bit for people that might be interested in that.
Yeah. Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say I got, burnt also, and right now, Warren Buffett said once, when the tide goes out, we see who's swimming naked, and there's been some swimming lately. So so I'm certainly not, I've been susceptible to that just like everybody else, because I invest in a lot of other people's, investments. I love Andrew Cushman. I'm in business with him through DAPT, and David, Andrew, Pat, and Tim. I'm a principal in that. So that's besides GoBundance, that's been my number one source. I would say stick with what you know. I lost 100,000 investing with a guy who was a teak farmer in Costa Rica. Got scammed on that. Got scammed on a few that were just out of my ballywhack. And, I don't know if you guys, any of you are invested in Green Coffee Company. That's not in my ballywhack, but I put 50K in that, and maybe it'll hit and I'll make 7 times, but Travis, honestly, I think it's not easy, and it's not easy to find the right operators. I've got a lot of self-storage stuff. There's other GoBros that I've invested in now that we'll see in 1 to 3 years how those go.
On those deals that went south, because I invested with some bad eggs, like I said, and they were in multifamily, so it wasn't too far out. I mean, we do mobile home parks, so it wasn't too far outside of what we're used to. And I went back and I think about how I felt before I signed with those guys, and my gut was screaming at me not to. If you could go back, and what was your gut telling you when you were wiring the money in for this coffee investment, or maybe this teak farming investment, or others that might have gone south? Do you ever, because you're good at listening to your inner tuition. I'm wondering if that was the case.
Yeah, I'm just going to be honest with you. I personally don't do jack now. My son is our COO. He's 41 years old. If my risk tolerance, it used to be a 12. Now it's down to say a 7 or an 8. He used to be a 3. I bought him up to a 5, let's say. So he vets everything we do. And, So I depend on him a lot, and I depend on Pat Hyden a lot. And yeah, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but I don't trust myself. I'm not in the trenches. I'm not paying attention really. So I'm really glad that I have my son that's helps me do that. He has way less risk tolerance than I do.
And also, I love that. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, or bounce ideas off people, or get, like, Mitch is a really, I'm always the optimist, oh, this is great and everybody's wonderful. And Mitch is he's sort of a pessimist to begin with, no, they're probably going to scam us, and they're going to want to lose money, and they should go to, but we balance each other out. But Mitch is really good at vetting, getting that gut character on someone's, the gut feel on somebody's character. And I think that's big. Business is a people sport, right? So I see the good in everybody, and I think everybody's great. Where Mitch is you're guilty until proven innocent, and I'm the other way around.
Travis, I'm you, and Chris is Mitch. And it's good to have a Chris/Mitch. And everybody who's listening to this, that's a Travis or a Tim, find a Chris or a Mitch. And it's good to have somebody that's the rocket ship and somebody else that's holding on for dear life, trying to keep your feet on the ground. And between the two of you, the answer lies somewhere in between. I will say, I had to put a gun to Chris's head to buy his first house. He's done 3 or 4 of Andrew Cushman's deals. He's very happy with the ones he's done. He did, there was one in Fort Walton Beach. He chose not to, and he's kicking himself in the ass now. So, the Mitch and the Chris mindset needs a Travis/Tim that says, no, we are doing this. So, and by the way, with that doesn't stop, you're going to do bad deals. There's going to be, you can't bat 100%. If you're batting 100%, you're not getting up to the plate.
No. Yeah, I love that. I think that there's a lot of merit, and we talk about partnerships a lot. And Mitch and I we're pretty similar, almost scary in a lot of ways, but we do there's properties where I'm this is great and this is fantastic, and he's nope, we shouldn't do this. Hindsight, we kick ourselves. Or there's deals where it was the other way around, where Mitch said we shouldn't do this and we did, and we're glad that we did. So you're right. The partnership is good, and it does pain me to say anything nice about Mitch, but I will. The partnership is great, and Mitch has made us a lot of money and got us out of a lot of shitty situations just by sort of also just trusting his gut and looking at things skeptically. So I love that, man.
Nice to see you edify him, and that's what I was early with David and Pat, and I think that's a beautiful thing to. It's if you have somebody that you feel good about and you guys are rolling together, if you can do that for a long time, I think that's so huge. And I think people give up on things too early but in partnerships and things that if it's working for you, man, keep it going.
Well, we have to keep it going. We're basically married. And so,
we're married like 12 times or whatever.
And I'm happy that we are. And hopefully we'll be doing a deal with Gabe here soon too, because we're all aligned in what we're looking for. So
for sure.
Good stuff, man. Who wants to any other questions before maybe Gabe, you want to ask the final question?
Yeah, Tim, the final question we ask all our guests every week is, if you were to lose it all today, so you lost your net worth, but you've also lost your network. We used to allow our guests to have their network, but it was too easy. So if you lost it all today, you're sitting on your buddy's couch, what's your first move? What do you do that first hour, that first day, week, month, year to rebuild, get yourself back to a better place?
I'd reach out to the contacts that I've made, that my close associates that are in the trenches today, that are active, that know me, that know what could help me, find my way to what's next for me. And I know you said without your network.
If you didn't,
I was like, I don't know.
What are they? Did you lose their phone number? What's the? You know what? But that's just tells you how important your networking is. You know what I mean?
Is.
I would. I'd go for a walk.
I knew that was coming.
I knew that.
That's right.
And you know what? I would find a way, because I just know I'm extremely optimistic, and as long as my mind is working and my mouth is working, I'll figure out a way, and B, I'll sell something. I'll do something that can bring money in, and then I'd find a way to put that money to work. And by the way, the most important thing in all of this, and if you remember my story, Tim played great defense. Defense wins championships, and we didn't touch on that. That is such a huge piece in the whole equation. There's somebody listening to this that's making a shit ton of money. You're also spending way too much. You don't need all that shit. Okay?
Well, elaborate on that really fast. Defense. So you're saying manage your downside when you're looking at investments, or elaborate on that a little bit, because I think
I'm talking more about living too large. Like in the One Life Fully Lived, we had the finance part was ABCs. Know your A, what's coming in from all sources. Know your B, what's it costing you to live. And how much debt do you have? And is that debt working for you or against you? And C is, what do you have left to invest? Or what do you have left for debt reduction? So the formula is increase your A, know your B really well, and hopefully get rid of all the debt that's keeping you from being able to invest wisely. So, yeah. And I think the B is so underrated. And the other piece that's way underrated is know your numbers. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that kind of, I make somewhere this much. I think I spend this much, not sure. They don't know how much is coming in, how much is going out. Where's their leakage?
I recommend people keep a personal profit and loss statement. I know I do. And sometimes it sucks. I'll tell you. I mean, I live a pretty big life, and I agree with you. Sometimes you look at your profit and loss statement every single month. Sometimes you're like, hell yeah. But sometimes you're going, man, I'm a jackass. Like, what the hell am I doing? But man, I think it's really important. And I review my personal profit and loss statement every single month. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. There's what's it costing you for your business, but what's it costing you for your life? And I think, and to know how much is going in, how much is going out, how much is left to invest, knowing that whole thing for every aspect of every business, and your personal trip.
What a great call. I'm glad we did this, Tim. So happy you joined us. I know you're a busy guy kicking ass, getting your goods in the woods. So I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully at maybe the next GoBundance event. And yeah, man, thanks again, Tim. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, well, if any of you are in Snowbird, Utah, let's get the goods in the woods on a chairlift.
Awesome. Tim, good to see you as always. Thank you for being on.
Thanks, guys.